Hey all, it's me. I'm cosplaying as Vermilia Scarlet, and I think this outfit's missing some things on the front, but that could be just me. Um, yeah, today we'll be looking at the route Bible for uh, for my Trainz route. Um, to address some things about the Trainz route, I know it doesn't look like Gensokyo, but it's also like I just started work on it earlier this week. Just bear with me. All right. Okay. All right. So let's go here, and let's shake, and let's see what comes loose. All right. So here is the front page. You guys have probably seen it in a couple of my videos. Here is the route Bible. Trying to get a good view so you guys can read it. So here's the route history. So I'm just going to read this verbatim. Gensokyo Railways is the current nationalized form of the Gensokyo railway system. Railroading in Gensokyo dates back to its early history in the late 1870s to early 1880s. Since then, the many railway companies of Gensokyo experienced a varied amount of success until the Great Yokai Riot, which lasted from 1917 to 1919, which caused major destruction and disruption of the region's railway services, leading to the amalgamation of all 27 or so railway companies down to just 3. These being the Zanzu and Western, the Great Gensokyo and Central Railway, and the Eastern Hakurei Railway. However, a recession caused by the bursting of a housing bubble and subsequent banking failure and the failure of the efforts to contain it caused profits to fall dramatically and the railways began to fail. So in 1952, the decision was made to nationalize the railway system. But one thing stood in the way of it. Gensokyo lacked a centralized government to national with. So what was done was a committee was formed to manage the railway, and thus the railway companies were self-nationalized, with them becoming a centralized force. So in case you didn't notice, the railways became the government and thus was able to nationalize themselves. It's weird, isn't it? But due to incompatibilities between the 3 main companies, the reopening of the railway was delayed by a year, and thus the nationalized system opened up for service in 1954. Steam locomotives were rebuilt to use standardized parts, and plans were made for the modernization of the railways. This included the switch from semaphore signaling to 3-aspect lights, as seen on the route, the move from steam to a standardized fleet of diesel locomotives, and the cutting up of unprofitable branch line routes. When the branch lines were closed, they were retained by railway chairwoman Yukari Yakumo for preservation use. Thus, many classes of steam locomotives were preserved and placed onto these lines. Steam traction would return to the main line during the 1970s as a result of the oil embargoes of the time. Side tangent, so Gensokyo wasn't completely weren't directly affected by the oil crises of the 1970s, mostly because to obtain the diesel oil meant either extracting oil from Gensokyoing land or stealing crude oil from other nations, because Gensokyo was still separated from the world by the Great Hakurei Barrier, so it's not like they were directly importing oil, but that's just something to, yeah. Anyway, the Kappa Valley suburban routes and mountain mineral lines were electrified due to inadequacies found in the standard diesel designs to handle both the frequent and starting and stopping of commuter trains and the heavy gradients and loads on the mineral lines. Electrification was also expanded to the Zanzu Harbor Line for faster export of manufactured goods from the many Kappa Valley/Gembu Ravine industrial estates. High-speed railway projects were put into place using what would later be the German model by building new high-speed lines across and away from sharp curves and gradients. The first Gensokyo and Shinkansen service opened up in 1984. The eastern and westernmost parts of the main line date back to the mid-1880s, but have had their infrastructure upgraded over the years to account for higher speeds and heavier loads. The Hakurai Shrine Station sits on the eastern terminus and the Oni Village on the western terminus in the Yokai Mountain region. All right, that was a brief history of the modern Gensokyo railways, and now we are going to look at the mainline route. So basically, there's a bit of a code to this. Filled in dots are all mainline stations, while the circular not so filled in dots denote branch lines. Branch line mainline terminuses are denoted by a message right here denoting in underlined text. I'm actually gonna see if I can make the mouse visible. How do I make the... So anyway, asterisks denote stations with marshalling yards. So we have the Hakurai Shrine, Lower Hakurai, Fairy's End, and then these are all the stations on the branch line, on the Force of Magic branch line. I was originally gonna make hold on, I just need to edit something. Never mind. We'll do it live. I didn't realize that there was supposed to be a marshalling yard at the Kirindu warehouse sidings. Oops. But luckily I made it only yeah. Then we have Riverside, Inari Village, Kitsune Fell, Hilltop Road, Yokai Crossing, Upper Yokai Village, Inaba's Junction, and that is the Bamboo Forest of the Lost / Yentei branch. And we got Bamboo Village, Lost Halt, Rabbit's Road, Lower Yentei, and Yentei Medicinal, which is a goods-only station. Canal's End, Mayahiga, Upper Mayahiga, the Human Junction, and this is a huge branch line. So the Human Village, thanks to the railways, have grown into this massive city, basically. So there's a lot of suburban stations here. We got Village End, Human Suburbia, Yokai Exchange, Lower Human Village, Old Village, Upper Human Village Center. Also, we have Merchants Depot and Craftsman Central, which are both stations on the goods line that goes deeper into the village. Then we have Tanuki Corner, Nameless Approach, Nameless Hill East, Nameless Hill West. Nameless Hill is said to be across from Yokai Mountain, but I fudged the geography a bit, so that way Nameless Hill would be a bit closer to the Human Village, because that's how I laid it out in my mind. I know I'm playing it a little fast and loose with Gensokyo geography, but then again, Zune didn't make a map of Gensokyo, so we actually don't know where everything is in relation to each other, hence why my old Gensokyo route was 110 miles long. To give you an idea, that's the distance from Boston, Massachusetts to about maybe like Springfield, Massachusetts. Yeah. Central Village, Mayoran Temple, Greslia, Kappa Field, which is just a agricultural goods line, Railway Village, which is the Gensokyo Railway's HQ, with a branch that is for office trains. So basically, official trains that are used for official railway business start there. Ferry Hill, Lower Prism River, and then Lake Junction, which is the Great Yokai Forest / Scarlet Devil Mansion branch. Upper Prism River, Great Yokai Forest, Forest Depot, Lakeside, Scarlet Devil's End, and Scarlet Devil Mansion, which is only for goods and office trains, because in the lore of, the lore I actually thought of was actually not canon anymore, so, Outer Lake, Mountain Road, Kappa Crossing, Spirit Junction, which is the Zanzu branch, where we have Upper Zanzu, Saguji's Retreat, Beachhead, Lower Zanzu, Harbor Station, and Harbor Depots A through C. So the Zanzu River is a normal river, but here I've conflating it to a massive, large, super wide, super deep, almost Great Lakes-esque body of water. Hence why there's a massive harbor here, and why there's loads of stuff. That, and also there's stuff jutting. There's like streams jutting out of the Zanzu River, which are used for tourists. Hence Sagyuji's Retreat and Beachhead. Then we go to Maiden Village, Outer Yokai Mountain, Ravine Junction, which is the Kappa Valley branch, which goes to Lower Genbu Ravine, Upper Genbu Ravine, Outer Valley, Kappa Valley Central, Upper Kappa Valley, which is the industrial branch, which we have the Co-op, the Estates, the Kawashiro Depot, and the Valley Manufactory. Then we have Kappa Terminus, which is the end of the Kappa Valley branch line, but that's where the mineral line starts. And that's all the lines going up high into the mountains where all sorts of rocks and ore is mined, among others. We have the Coal Co-op, Iron Ore Co-op, Oni Quarry, Upper Mines, and the Mountain Mines. Then we have Tengu's Base, the Moria Shrine, former Hell Station, Yokai Mountain Depot, and Oni Village. So, interesting tidbit about Moria Shrine. So the Moria Shrine wouldn't appear until Gensokyo's history. So up until the Great Yokai Riot of 1917, or just the Great Yokai Riot because it lasted longer than 1917. That used to be a village, but that was destroyed during the Great Yokai Riot, and because it had a railway connection, the station was abandoned. The rest of the village has been razed, and during the 1930s, with the idea that it would be redeveloped during the 1940s, which the process started, but because of a bunch of bureaucracy-related stuff on the railway's end, development did not start until the late 1940s. In 1946, and just as they started work, the Great Gensokyo and economic crisis of 1948 happened, and yeah, that was the end of that. Yeah, and then we have Route Industries. So the Route Industries are listed as the cargo that will be found. And the cargo is relative to what's found in Trainz. So, by the way, you can turn this into a drinking game. How many times general goods and palletized goods appear? So, italicized text means an output only. So it only sends out goods. It exports goods only. If it's bold, that means it's an input, meaning it imports and only imports. If it's regular text, that means it's an input and output. So I realized I erroneously set some text that shouldn't be italicized. But, yeah. So these are all the available industries. Yeah. And here are the route parameters. So these are the speed limits. Right here, it's all the speed limits for the different lines. We have yards, we have signals, mainline tracks, branch line tracks, electrified section. So halfway through this, I decided the human village will be electrified, but the lore wasn't really updated to account for that, so... Anyway, here are the rolling stock specs. This is the master list of all goods that will be transported on this railway. This is the master list of all of them. Some of them have been simplified, like beer comes either in kegs or is palletized, but it will be palletized here. So basically, these are all the different cargoes that will be available on this route that have interactive industries. And we have a freight car list, which is sort of just a small list of what I can think of off the top of my head. And it also includes things like DMUs and EMUs, which I haven't really figured out. Okay, so this is for the route and for the Trainz route only. The diesels featured here are all BR class diesels, but actually in the lore, because of perceived weaknesses in British diesels during the 1950s, Yukari Yakumo, who was the chairwoman of Gensokyo Railways, actually went to the American Locomotive Company to obtain 4 standardized classes of diesel. A shunting diesel, a express passenger diesel, a heavy freight diesel, and a middle of the road, can go anywhere, including branch lines, do any work, mixed traffic locomotive. The mixed traffic locomotive was a 5-axle version of the RS series of locomotives by Alco. The passenger locomotives, known as the P1s, the P1s were essentially Alco PAs, but with dual cabs. The heavy freight locomotive was sort of a prototype of the Century series, and thus they didn't have the high nose that later RS and early Century locomotives had. And the shunting locomotive is basically just a smaller version of the RS with the cab centered. And that appears to be it. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to edit the noise of my group home out because they're being incredibly loud, but yeah. So I'll probably no, wrong scene. So I'll probably do a video on the history of Gensokyo Railways. The only issue is the document that I've made up is incomplete. So far only goes to about the mid to late 1930s. Yeah. I have stubble. I'm going to shave that in the morning. Yeah. Thanks for watching.